You are the father. Oh, Jesus. Oh, hold on. I told you.
Okay, get up.
Literally called and stated to my son that I am? No, that ain't working. We're gonna prove this.
You are the example to those little girls as to what a man should act like, how a man should talk to them, and how a man should treat them.
Miss Hauser's plea echoes in the air. Her ex-husband's sudden departure and her son's mysterious ailments hang in the balance. DNA's role in a life-altering condition remains shrouded, and a fervent search for answers takes center stage.
Mr. Campbell and I met when I was a junior and he was a senior in high school. And what ended up happening was mid to late July, early August, I became pregnant. We discussed it and we figured out to get married. Mr. Campbell's father hated me, absolutely could not abide me.
First things first. Turns out that Dennis R. Campbell's name was on the birth certificate, but the alleged father was stuck with military obligations at the time. The judge's inquiries reveal surprising revelations. A marriage amid doubts, a teenage romance teetering on the edge.
Dennis R. Campbell is listed as father.
Yes, but I didn't list me on there. I was in basic training. I had no idea.
You don't remember receiving an acknowledgement or anything to sign?
No, ma'am.
But at that time, you all were married?
Yes,
So the
ma'am.
child was born within the marriage?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
As soon as when you married her, that this wasn't your child?
Yes, ma'am.
After this, Judge Lake delves into the timeline of the marriage and the subsequent breakdown. The court scene is set with revelations of living arrangements that raise eyebrows. The mobile home becomes an unexpected setting for a story that twists and turns, leading to a heart-wrenching separation.
And then when Michael was 4 months old, I moved into a mobile home court with a boyfriend and a girlfriend and one of their friends and Michael and I. It was a 3-bedroom. There was nothing going on between any of us. It was just cheaper to live that way. Mr. Campbell came to see me because he was in the Army. He was on the base all the time.
Ms. Hauser reveals the heartbreaking challenges her son faced from a young age, a poignant story of resilience against the odds. The emotional toll on the family is palpable as she details Michael's medical struggles and her financial strain. Amidst the backdrop of these difficulties, the absence of support from Mr. Campbell stands out starkly.
As he got older, we noticed something wasn't right. He ended up having a rare form of epilepsy on top of it. So we're dealing with that. And then when he turned 12, he had the first diagnosis of manic depression.
I can imagine this has been taxing. I mean, literally,
Financially.
emotionally, and you've been through a lot.
The paternity court takes an unexpected turn as the DNA results are unveiled. Miss Hauser's certainty crumbles in the face of the truth, leaving her stunned. The emotional intensity in the courtroom is palpable as the implications of the results unfold.
Mr. Campbell, you are not the father.
Oh my.
You were so certain that there was no other person that you had entertained because you had been completely faithful to him. That just is not true. The DNA has
I have
spoken.
No clue.
Miss Lewis faces an unexpected crisis, confronting her own father in court to prove her very identity. What kind of bad parents make their daughter come to this stage? The suspense thickens as emotions run high, and the audience is left to wonder what drove this family to such a dramatic moment.
So your grandmother tried to reassure you.
Yes.
The man you believe to be your biological father just basically came out and said one day, I'm not your father.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're about 13 years old. And up until this point, you were daddy's little girl.
Yes. We started going to visit him every summer up until the one summer when I was told that he wasn't my dad.
As the pieces of this complex puzzle come together, the tension between Mr. Palmer and Miss Lewis escalates, and their perspectives clash. Miss Lewis courageously stands her ground, revealing a poignant detail that could potentially shatter her identity. The courtroom buzzes with anticipation as the judge tries to untangle the truth from a web of emotions.
Well, you're saying, Mr. Palmer, you saw her with this old friend, and it was a man.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Lewis is saying is her mother admitted to that I did ask this man to take me because I wanted to go see my mother because she was dying, but I was already pregnant with Miss Lewis, with Margaret, before that happened. But what you thought in that moment was she was sleeping with this other gentleman as well.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Palmer's wartime service adds an unexpected layer to the narrative. As the judge unravels the chronology, the audience is on the edge of their seats. The revelation about Miss Lewis's birth date has everyone's attention, building suspense as the truth inches closer to the surface.
You say you left to go to war.
In May of 68.
May of 68, let me first say thank you for your service. Then you say you returned 9 or 10 months later. Ms. Lewis was born September 6, 1969.
Yeah, I was drafted to Vietnam in May of 68, and she was born.
Tensions soar as Mr. Williams, Miss Lewis's brother, takes the stand. He provides his perspective on the situation, which intensifies the drama. The audience holds its collective breath, eager to hear more about the family dynamics that could shed light on the truth.
Mr. Williams, how are you related to Ms. Lewis?
Her brother.
You are her brother.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
Do you believe Mr. Palmer is Ms. Lewis's biological father?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I was there. I was there when he told her that he was not her father, but I believe that.
Oh, you were there on that day at the farm?
Yes, ma'am, I was. Yes, Your Honor.
In an emotionally charged moment, Miss Lewis passionately declares her belief that Mr. Palmer is her father, regardless of his earlier denial. Her brother, Mr. Williams, stands by her side, offering reassurance. The atmosphere is heavy with feelings of reconciliation and acceptance. The court listens attentively as the family's complicated dynamics come to light.
We've just became into a relationship these last 4 or 5 years because I moved back home.
Okay.
And I did that because my dad was sick, and I came back and I wanted to make sure my kids knew who he was and he knew who they was.
The audience is captivated by the unfolding narrative of family bonds being mended and long-lost connections being rekindled. With tension mounting, the court's decision arrives for 46-year-old Margaret Lewis. Applause erupts as emotions peak. Mr. Palmer's reflections add a layer of depth to the scene, providing closure and healing.
Mr. Palmer, you are her father.
I told you.
Miss Hadel confronts ex-partner Mr. Andrews to prove he's the father of their 1-year-old daughter, Emerella. Their tumultuous 8-year relationship ended due to paternity doubts, fueled by alleged cheating. As emotions run high, the truth takes center stage.
We have had a rough road throughout these 7.5 years. 9 months into our relationship, he impregnated another female while he was living with me. So I moved to Kansas and got away from him, started our relationship back, and I had planned on having another child with him.
Tensions rise as Hadel and Andrews navigate their stormy past. Trust was non-existent, resulting in extreme measures. The baby mama shared an astonishing tale of jumping out a window to escape Andrew's barricade. But the courtroom's focus narrows down to their daughter's paternity.
Maurice and I were not on that term of trust, so there was no trust. I didn't trust him, he didn't trust me.
I get that you all were in a bad place in your relationship, but what does trust have to do with you playing Wonder Woman and jumping out the window?
I couldn't walk out my front door because he was barricading my front door.
Where were you going?
I was going to find comfort.
Denying the encounter, Miss Hadel vehemently opposes Mr. Andrews' claim, even as condoms come into play. Their chaotic relationship history adds to the suspense, with allegations of other potential fathers emerging. Tensions simmer as Miss Hadel and Mr. Andrews exchange fiery words.
Did you have sex with a guy in the car?
Yes.
No, he found condoms in the car. Like I said, they were in a wrapper. They haven't been used, and if he's saying he's found a used wrapper or dirty, I did not see that, and I don't know how it got there.
A couple times.
4 months ago, Miss Hadel told me about 2 other potential fathers.
Correct.
Really?
And I didn't like where all of this was going. That's why Judge Lake stepped in, calling for a much-needed break while urging the quarreling duo to hydrate and reflect on their behavior. The courtroom erupts in laughter as she playfully chides their bickering. pointing out the responsibilities as parents amid the chaos.
You all sound like you like 16 years old.
Trust me, I know.
Arguing back and forth, and you got these little beautiful children. And from what I'm saying, I don't even know how you have time to make babies because you don't stop talking.
Ms. Hadel and Mr. Andrews clash over accusations and denials. Ms. Hadel vehemently asserts that the friend in question was never a romantic interest, while Mr. Andrews insists otherwise. Amidst the courtroom drama, Judge Lake tries to make sense of their conflicting stories, highlighting the emotional roller coaster the two are trapped in.
This is a friend I've never been sexual with, and he is talking about a friend being at my home.
Who you said was Amarella's father. It's a man
I've never been
who you
sexual
know
with
I
this
had
person.
contact with. They didn't have physical contact with over this situation.
Because he's delusional.
As soon as I leave,
been sexual
you had
with
this
this
man
person.
at the house where I just left from.
Then, the dramatic reveal leaves everyone speechless. Emotions run high as Amarella's fate is sealed. But even in this moment of resolution, Judge Lake takes the opportunity to offer a pointed lesson about communication, underscoring the importance of speaking honestly and from the heart.
Mr. Andrews, you are the father. You have tears in your eyes. How do you feel in this moment?
I love her regardless. It's my daughter's sister, so it didn't make me no difference if I was or wasn't. I just wanted to prove.
Oh, it didn't?
Yes, it did.
A gripping episode of Paternity Court unfolds as Miss Holsinger demands truth and responsibility. Abandonment accusations and contested paternity fuel the tension, with shocking revelations about signed birth certificates and disputed fatherhood. The verdict on Gabriel's future hangs in the balance, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, judging these bad parents.
I met him off the chat line. I was lonely, so I decided to call and try to basically find something to do.
Yeah, she found something to do, and we end up messing around too fast. You know what I mean? Too fast.
Right, that's what I don't understand about these chat lines, Ron.
As the drama intensifies, a startling revelation emerges. Miss Holsinger confesses to hiding behind her own refrigerator to avoid the defendant. Their turbulent history, tangled with a past relationship and messages on a phone, adds intrigue. With emotions high and doubts looming, Paternity Court dives into the depths of this complex case.
Were you hiding behind the refrigerator, Miss Holsinger?
Yes, ma'am, I was, because
in your own house?
Yes, ma'am, because this man would
What
not
was
leave
she
me
hiding
alone,
for?
and I did
Why
not
was
want to
she
deal with
hiding?
him, and he would just pop up all the time, and I just didn't want to deal with that.
Who is this guy?
And at the time, she's
It's
pregnant.
a guy that I used to mess with, and I had cut it off with him.
The courtroom crackles with tension as Miss Holsinger confronts Mr. May, pleading for him to step up as a father to their child Gabriel. A poignant photo of Mr. May with a baby is unveiled, hinting at a deeper connection. Raw emotions unravel as past mistakes are aired, revealing a complex web of blame and guilt. Judge Lake steps in to mediate the charged exchange.
Mr. May with little beautiful baby, Gabriel. I don't see a lot of doubt in this photo.
Cause it ain't, cause he know that baby is his, Your Honor. And it's really hurting me that he's not stepping up to be a man. My son needs his father, and it hurts me. And, and I know I'm part of the blame because I know I wasn't in a relationship with him.
A dramatic revelation surfaces as Mr. May asserts that he, too, could potentially be the father of Gabriel, citing Miss Holsinger's earlier uncertainty about paternity. Judge Lake drills down to the truth, challenging the unwavering testimonies. The tense exchange reaches a climax, culminating in a calendar that holds the key to resolving the paternity dispute.
Because he told you that.
Yeah.
Did you tell someone else they could possibly be the father, Miss Holsinger?
No, I didn't, but I also told him, I wasn't sure.
You're wavering. No, that's not what you just said. That's not what you testified to earlier. There was an issue with regard to who the biological father was of this child?
Yes, Your Honor.
The courtroom tension escalates as Judge Lake questions the perplexing situation. The dynamics of dropping off and picking up their child become a focal point, leading to revelations about Gabriel's limited time with Mr. May. The atmosphere becomes charged with emotional uncertainty, and the complexities of their strained interactions come to the forefront.
But you had dropped the baby off over there. How is he gonna leave you alone and he has the baby?
I dropped the baby off, and it was over to me.
When's the last time you saw Gabriel?
Since I actually, held him, and
yes,
it's been a long.
So Miss Holsinger, has this other guy seen Gabriel?
Yeah, because he barged in one day.
The courtroom brims with anticipation as Judge Lake's announcement looms. Unraveling the web of confusion, the truth is finally unveiled about young Gabriel's paternity. Tensions rise as the verdict hangs in the air, keeping both parties and the audience on edge. The judge delivers the verdict that transforms the room's atmosphere, met with applause and a sense of resolution.
Mr. May, you are the father. Good news.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
He has a great father.
Listen, it's amazing when I think about you all saying you just were feeling lonely and didn't know what to do with yourself, so you just called a chat line. The sides of the spectrum, I have one man that looks at the baby and can't do anything but cry, and I got one man that's never looked at the baby and is ready to walk away, and then I got the grandmother baby saying she wants the man that doesn't want to be the father and not the man that's crying every time he sees the baby, and I'm saying to myself, who's thinking about the baby?
Simmering resentment and unanswered questions hang heavy in the air as Mr. and Mrs. Holland prepare all their weapons to give you one of the most brutal fights ever seen on paternity court. Will the truth about 2-year-old Bentley's real father come out today?
He's a loving father to our son, and I don't know what I would do without him. He is everything to the both of us.
And you feel your marriage crumbling right under your feet?
Yes, Your Honor.
So do you admit to your past transgressions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, you admit it?
Yes.
Mr. Holland's claim is simple. His wife is a serial cheat. But who knew that she would admit it to the entire audience as well as Judge Lauren? With her quivering voice, she says yes to all the cheating accusations. But there's a catch. She's cheated, but never slept with anyone.
Some people that I was talking to that were male, he didn't approve of, but I continued talking to them anyhow, and he constantly caught them on my phone, their names, their text messages, Snapchats. He didn't like it. We were constantly fighting, and I ended up pregnant in April.
Yet, despite their happy beginnings, especially how Mrs. Holland helped Mr. Holland achieve a career in the U.S. Marines, it seems these two lost their footing along the way. Despite Mr. Holland's multiple warnings about the people Mrs. Holland kept flirting with on text, the problem stuck.
When I went to the doctor, I was 8 weeks along, and we had an amazing, happy pregnancy. He was there for all the doctor's appointments, all the ultrasounds. He just was overwhelmed because he finally had a baby with the woman that he loved the most. He kept saying that he didn't think it was his because of my promiscuous past.
Turns out that sleeping so much with your husband doesn't always keep him happy, especially if he catches you doing things with other people. Mrs. Holland was slumbering away in bliss one night when Mr. Holland went through her phone. And my, oh my, the pictures he stumbled upon absolutely crushed his heart.
Miss Holland?
Yes, Your Honor.
This don't sound too good. Is this true?
Your Honor, it is true. We're all in panic.
What was above it was enough for me. There was a picture of his that was enough to sell it for me.
Wait, was there a picture of your ex's in the text chain, Miss Holland?
Yes, Your Honor.
The most heartless part of this entire dispute is how much Mr. Holland loved his wife. He had the patience to let all bygones be bygones. That is, until he caught Mrs. Holland in the action again. She kept sending her explicit photos to even more ex-boyfriends. Was that how she was raised?
Nobody's ever been born in my family. We're a very deep Irish family, and we all have really dark hair.
I was born with bleach blonde hair. I have blue eyes. I have baby pictures that look just like him. He has your big old egg head, your ears, your black eyelashes. That baby is yours, and I know that he is yours.
Mr. Holland goes on to mention what a close relationship he's come to have with Bentley. For him, that little boy is everything. But the poor man lies awake in restlessness and unease every night because he knows his wife has never been faithful, and he just cannot bear it anymore.
What if her ex is Bentley's father?
I have no clue. How are you supposed to be a father to something, a beautiful child that's not yours, that another man needs to be taken care of because it's a man's job to be a father?
Miss Holland, you admit to every destructive thing you've done to basically rip through the fabric of your marriage.
Yes, Your Honor.
Amidst all the brutal heartlessness, Mr. Holland feels a deep confusion about how to raise Bentley if he's not his son. Even though Mrs. Holland keeps insisting, she doesn't have the power that a DNA test does. So, the only way to settle this is to bring the results in.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Holland, you are the father.
Miss Jones comes to the court to clear up the paternity of her son, Jordan. There are two possibilities as to the father. One is Mr. Morones, who is currently taking care of Jordan, and the other possibility is Mr. Smith, who says he wishes to sign over his parental rights if he's discovered to be the biological father.
I sent Mr. Morones a text message saying that I was pregnant. I never said that he was the only possible father.
So when you told him you were pregnant, you were just like, and I want your address to invite you to my shower?
Right.
Mr. Morones discovered he wasn't the only possible father when Miss Jones confessed it to him one night. Not just that, but she also said that other than Mr. Smith, there was also the possibility of her ex-husband being Jordan's father because she also slept with him. Miss Jones denies it happened like this.
We were sleeping one night and she came to the room and she was like, I need to get something off my chest. She was like, I was with my ex-husband and I was trying to get my family back. About 2 months later after that, she decides to tell me that somebody I know, she went out to the bar and slept with them.
That is not the way it happened.
Mr. Morones was absolutely devastated when he found out he might not be Jordan's father because he is very attached to Jordan. He says this hurtful information began to feel more real when he realized Jordan has blonde hair and blue eyes, and he doesn't have those physical characteristics, but Mr. Smith does.
When baby Jordan was born, what happened?
I mean, he came out, he was blonde hair, blue eyes, and I was terrified because I didn't think I was his father, especially after she confessed all these other relationships she had. She used to send me pictures all the time saying, why do you want to see him? He's not even your son. It was side-by-side pictures of him.
Are you just trying to play with his head?
Mr. Smith is brought in, and he says he was intimate with her during the window of conception, but the act didn't last long and wasn't completed, which is why he thinks he might not have impregnated Miss Jones. Judge Lauren says that it's medically possible to father a child, even if the act hasn't been completed.
We had sex, but it maybe lasted 3 minutes until...
That's not true.
I didn't...
And this is the excuse she gave me that I could only be the father is because he was too drunk to perform.
So because your act was not completed, you felt like there's no possible way I could be the father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Lauren asks Mr. Smith why he has doubts regarding Jordan's paternity. He says it's because he was intimate with Miss Jones almost a full year before Jordan was born, which puts him out of the window of conception. When asked, Miss Jones says she does not remember the exact month they were intimate.
In March or April is when you remember being intimate with Miss Jones. But Jordan was born on May 1st. So counting back, that's almost a full year. So you're saying that puts you out of the window of conception?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Jones, is that how your math adds up as well?
I don't know when I was with Mr. Smith.
Mr. Morones once again states that he hopes he's Jordan's father, even if they don't look alike. Judge Lauren comments on the fact that it's obvious Mr. Morones loves this child, while Mr. Smith wants nothing to do with him. So, are the DNA results going to favor Mr. Morones or Mr. Jones?
It is determined that Mr. Morones, you are his father.
Thank you.
I see the joy written all over your face, pouring out of your heart.
The plaintiff went through foster homes not knowing the identity of her biological father. She brought the defendant to court in hopes of having a father. But Mr. Tucker didn't buy it and was prepared to prove otherwise.
I got put in foster care, had to live with complete strangers. I don't have respect for authority or anyone telling me what to do. I've been living from foster home to foster home. I found out at 12 that Myron here, Mr. Tucker, may not be my father.
Evidently, the defendant was ready to fight for custody years ago. However, by that time, Miss Nasirapur had already dropped the bomb of him not being the father. Ouch! Now, she presented her side of the story about what actually happened.
He left me and went to LA, supposedly.
I did not go
When
to
actually
no.
he was with his girlfriend at the time that was,
I was
pregnant
not,
as well.
No.
I did tell him that it could be between two guys.
Right,
I
but
wanna
you're
make sure
saying
she's
you were
old enough.
honest with him.
I was honest with him and Darnell Golston. I'm hurt, just like Brittany's hurt. Brittany's torn apart.
The birth certificate came into the play along with something else to back up the plaintiff's claims. Even though Miss Markham Love believed there were two possibilities, her heart called one of those possibilities more.
I have a transcript saying that my last name used to be Tucker, and then I have a birth certificate showing that my last name has switched. I do not have the birth certificate when my last name was Tucker.
So this is your school transcript, and it's showing that your last name was Tucker.
Yes.
Wow, oh wow! The defendant and the mother both weren't so forthcoming about the truth. Guess they didn't believe that truth sets you free. And once upon a time, these guys were in love. Imagine that.
You were living with them as a family, and then you disappeared, and that really meant you went and got married to someone else?
Yes. You cheated on me with a pizza guy, though.
You were in LA. You said you were living in LA.
So-
I was in love with him the whole time.
How you was in love with me and you cheated on me with
How
a
did I
pizza
cheat on
guy?
you? You weren't even there.
Next up, we got to see the narrative of the baby mama packed with emotions. Tissues, anyone? Well, moving on, Mommy put up a valid question for the father. And the cat got his tongue, apparently.
Say and you admit that you've made some
I've
mistakes.
done a lot of mistakes, Your
But
Honor.
ultimately,
I made a lot of mistakes.
I can tell you love your daughter.
I do love my daughter, but you know what? I went to prison. I've done a lot of bad things in my life. I forgave myself. I do my best. But if I was on drugs and I was such a dope fiend, Myron, that you should have stepped up and took her if I was doing so bad. You should have let me take her.
Mommy sincerely believed that baby daddy abandoned her. He, on the other hand, presented a counter-narrative to support his claim that he did not disappear from their lives.
I didn't have no phone number, no contact information at all. Only way I got contact with them is when they sent me the letter stating my daughter was in foster care. That was it. And then when I was going to court to do parenting classes and stuff, I get a letter stating that my parental rights was forfeited.
Because you didn't want to do the classes.
And so...
You wasn't there, you don't know what I did.
It was obvious how much an absence of a father can wreak havoc on a child's life. They all came here for some real answers. So, it was time they got those.
Mr. Tucker, you are not her father. Miss Nasirapur, that's a shocker. Are you okay, Brittany?
I'll be fine.
Mr. and Mrs. Gamboa are present in paternity court over the paternity of their son, Dominic. Mrs. Gamboa says she's sick of Mr. Gamboa accusing her of cheating on him with their live-in babysitter and always saying Dominic is not his son, as it's affected his bonding with Dominic. Mr. Gamboa says Dominic looks like the babysitter.
I was at work, Your Honor, and I got a phone call because we're all living in the same house. My stepfather had called me saying that the babysitter was asleep in my room on the floor with the door shut with my wife in there.
The door wasn't shut, Your Honor.
She said he was on the bed.
Well, when I had got home that morning, he was on the bed.
Mrs. Gamboa says she did not cheat on her husband with the babysitter, even though the babysitter was asleep on their bed. She says the door was open the entire time. Mr. Gamboa says his stepfather called him to say the babysitter was in his room with his wife with the door shut, which caused him to be suspicious.
His stepfather doesn't like me, and he only slept on the floor. When he came home, I was in the living room watching TV, and our babysitter was sitting on the bed.
Well, I was working a graveyard shift, so I mean, she would be up by the time I'd be home, so how would I know if she was in the bed with the babysitter?
Because we've been together for so long, you should know that I wouldn't do that to you.
Mrs. Gamboa says the male babysitter was Mr. Gamboa's decision, as the babysitter was homeless and they needed help with their kids. She says her life has been a living hell since that time because Mr. Gamboa says Dominic looks like the babysitter, and his suspicious nature has made her regret the babysitter decision a lot.
The male babysitter was his decision in the first place. It was a mutual friend of ours he knew more than I did.
Discussed.
And then he was not living with us at the time. And Mr. Gamboa offered him to stay with us because he was homeless with his 2 children.
No, we had
So you took in his children.
Right. And ever since then, it's been a living hell for me.
Mr. Gamboa then says that he also had doubts because he had severe mumps as a kid, meaning there's a chance he might be sterile, and he didn't conceive with his first wife either. Mrs. Gamboa says he should have had these doubts with their first son too. He said he has them now because of the babysitter incident.
I had severe mumps, a case of severe mumps at teenage age, and I was previously with my ex for about 5 years, and I could not conceive with her at all. Well, Your Honor, when we conceived our first son, we were all living with her ex. We were all living in one house, so I mean.
Right, and he knew about it.
Mr. Gamboa said he felt suspicious because the babysitter would post pictures of Mr. Gamboa's house saying it was his house, and he also had a set of keys to the house. The truly evil thing is that Mrs. Gamboa did that to mess up the marriage because he was homeless and wanted a permanent place to stay.
She was always having the babysitter
That doesn't
around.
mean I'm cheating on you.
Somebody has a set of keys to your apartments and he's snapping photos saying that this is his house. And
Your Honor, I strongly believe that our babysitter was trying to mess up our marriage. Because at the end of this whole situation, our babysitter, when we kicked him out, he had no place to go.
Mrs. Gamboa says he left immediately after Dominic's birth and didn't come back to the hospital for 2 days, even though Dominic had jaundice. Judge Lauren says if her husband had done that, he would have been in big trouble. Mr. Gamboa says he had work to do to pay the bills and keep the roof over their heads.
I mean, you don't tell a woman in a hospital, I've been in the hospital and just had a baby. I wish my husband would say he was about to leave somewhere and come right back and didn't come back for 2 days. We're gonna have us a problem.
Your Honor, I couldn't get
now, you don't come back for 2 days and you say you sent someone to pick her up because you had to work, but you worked graveyard, so where were you all day?
Mrs. Gamboa submits videos to court that show Mr. Gamboa ignoring the child in potentially dangerous situations. She says he hasn't bonded with the baby at all due to his suspicions and is causing him to ignore Dominic. Judge Lauren agrees. So, can the DNA results help this father bond with his son?
It has been determined by this court that Mr. Gamboa, you are his father.
Thank you. Thank you. That's your baby. Bond with him. No more excuses. Bond with him.
Yes, I will. I will be his father.
Your Honor, the other day he said the doctor told him he can't have no kids because he been trying to have a baby with Miss Tomato Head over there for a long time.
Still been sleeping with him, coming in 8:30 in the morning.
That was
Come on
only
now.
twice, but he comes in 4 or 5
It doesn't matter, but
every night, Your Honor.
Some women come into court with the most bizarre of accusations. Even then, they manage to knock you right off your seat. That's just the case of Ms. Lewis trying to trap her childhood crush, Mr. Milton, into a paternity battle. Why? Because she's obsessed with him.
I feel like she's been plotting on me ever since then. Like
Since you were kids?
Yeah, because you know what? Ever since I was younger, I always had somebody else in my life. And she always came around. She knew that. I always had somebody else, but she always wanted to be around, calling me, coming over.
Okay, so you believe she's been pursuing you?
Yes.
And that was part of her plot?
As soon as she got the opportunity, she got it.
Mr. Milton starts his testimony by confessing how Ms. Lewis has been stalking him since they were children. Whenever some new love interest showed up in his life, Ms. Lewis would be there to make things worse. But Ms. Lewis says that she only found him cute and never chased him that way.
So when you were in other relationships, you say Miss Lewis used to always come around?
Always
Were
come
you coming
around.
around, Miss Lewis?
Yes.
Coming
Hello.
around for what? Trying to
No,
be
because
with him?
it was my
Trying to be
family.
with me. She was
My
trying to
family
be with
was
me.
close with his family, and he know his mom loves me, and he know how close his family is with me.
Judge Lauren then asks them if they were ever in a romantic relationship, and it's clarified that nothing like that ever happened. But the shocking revelation comes when Miss Lewis says that her girlfriend encouraged her to sleep with a man so they could raise a newborn together.
The opportunity presented itself, or either you created the opportunity to go over and see him, and you all have unprotected sex. Is that the testimony?
Yes, Your Honor.
And it was sex one time, or how many times?
First time it was one time. Then after the baby was born, of course, you know, we was getting a little more familiar, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it was more than one time.
According to Mr. Milton, Ms. Lewis told him she was pregnant the very night they slept together. But then Ms. Lewis says that she didn't tell him until 2 weeks later, And even then, she went to share the news with his mama first, and she seemed pretty over the moon about them having a kid together.
How did you find out Ms. Lewis was pregnant?
She came over to my mother's house with a sonogram and
She had a sonogram when she came to your mother's house?
Yes.
2 weeks after you had
Yes.
sex with her?
I saw a little baby, black and white, in a sonogram ultrasound. That's what she said. Then she said, don't the baby look like you? I ain't got no face in there. How the baby look like you?
At first, Mr. Milton was happy about the pregnancy, but then the doubts started creeping in when Ms. Lewis' girlfriend called his mother. Guess what she had to say? That Ms. Lewis was married to some African guy and that they had been sleeping together. Even Judge Lauren is confused at this point.
You were married to another man?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so were you having sex with that man as well?
No, Your Honor. She was mad at me at the time, so she called Mr. Milton and told.
She didn't call me. She called my mother. Let's be real.
So how old was Desire?
Young, very young. You know, like I was really trying to be there.
At this point, the judge asks Miss Lewis, what's the deal with this secret husband? She says that she married him when she was young. She wasn't making the best decisions then. Or is she just coming up with excuses to portray herself as innocent here?
If your partner calls his family and says, now you know she has a husband, and if his testimony that he saw a sonogram, an ultrasound at 2 to 3 weeks is true, and you also had a husband, then he is very confused about the paternity.
Eventually, Mr. Milton's girlfriend, Ms. Daniels, is asked to give her testimony. She says that Ms. Lewis is just attention-seeking, and that every time she comes over, she's just there to create a mess. She's not really concerned about her daughter. So, will the DNA results prove Ms. Lewis wrong?
Mr. Milton, you are the father.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Had
you.
to know. I had to know.
You.
It's
God,
my right.
God,
It's my
I
right.
told you.
You planted seeds of doubt. You planted seeds of doubt. It's my right to know. You planted that.
Okay, look. Just take a minute and take a breath.
I told you.
Mr. and Mrs. Peebles should have known they won't be getting a happy ending when they married each other on April Fool's Day. Now, Mr. Peebles is in a pickle. He's wondering if he's really the father of their daughter, or has his wife been making a fool of him all these years?
In the beginning, you know, everything was cool, she was nice, but then to come to find out she's very conniving, bossy, insecure.
So you say you feel like a fool?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you set out to fool him, Miss Peebles?
No, ma'am. He fooled me. I've been taking care of this man for 4 years.
Turns out, before these two tied the knot, things had been as smooth as ever. But it was their marriage that revealed Mrs. Peebles' true mask to her husband. Once her true colors showed, he realized she wasn't as nice and cool as she led him on to believe.
This is just like a stopping point right now.
Now, he claimed I was cheating on him, which I'm gonna be honest, I did. It's because he cheated on me first.
How did you find out about all this?
So on my birthday, she dropped me off.
Incorrect, he drove my car. So I got picked up to go to this party, which I met the other guy.
The biggest blow came when Mrs. Peebles already made plans on the day of Mr. Peebles' birthday. What kind of woman doesn't take out her own husband for dinner on his big day? According to Mr. Peebles, she had already made plans to cheat on him. But to do it on his birthday?
Of course, I was sleeping with him, but I used protection with this guy.
Okay, you say you use birth control, you use a condom. Well, we know that's not 100% effective. Is that the only time you slept with that guy?
Maybe a week after that, but like I said, protected sex.
1 week after?
Yes, Your Honor.
Even Judge Lauren takes Mr. Peebles' side and sees why he might be so suspicious of his wife and her whereabouts. But the worst part is that Mrs. Peebles didn't just betray her husband once, she did it again a week later. And although she says she used protection, that doesn't erase the doubts.
When you find out you're pregnant, who do you tell?
Mr. Peebles.
You know, I'm super excited. This gonna be my first child. And I get to thinking like, dang, almost 2 years of being together, unprotected sex, never got pregnant. Until you go outside the relationship and come back, and now you pregnant.
The audacity of Mrs. Peebles to point fingers at Mr. Peebles. According to her, she was just cheating for revenge because Mr. Peebles might try to show himself as an innocent man in court, but he's not free from sin either. So what made Mr. Peebles doubt in the first place?
Oh, so you took another man's money to pay for the man you live with?
Yes, but he making it seem like I'm the bad person when he up here talking to other women and got a baby on the way. We married now. Your baby due is 2 weeks before our baby birthday. And you still talk to her. And she your friend on Facebook, but your wife can't be your friend on Facebook.
Things really started spiraling when Mr. Peebles talks about the stranger who showed up at his house. At first, he suspected Mrs. Peebles was sleeping with him, but then she tells the entire court that this unknown man helped her with bills. Why did she marry Mr. Peebles then?
Still been sleeping with him, coming in 8:30 in the morning.
That was
Come on
only
now.
twice, but he comes in 4 or 5
It doesn't matter, but-
every night, Your Honor.
Miss Peebles, are you pregnant now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know who this child's father is?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know.
It seems like that even Mr. Peebles has his fair share of issues, but it doesn't justify all the bad things Mrs. Peebles did to him. Sure, she takes care of him, but losing your husband's trust is the worst possible thing. Can the results mend their marriage?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Peebles, you are the father.
Take care of your responsibility. Help me out. Start helping me out. I ain't dumb. And you making it feel like I'm the fool. I'm deceiving you. You deceived me from day one.
Mr. Meyer and Ms. Fisher are about to engage in one of the craziest paternity court battles to date, where Ms. Fisher claims that she was ready to leave her single life behind and start a family with Mr. Meyer. He thinks that all she did to him was break his heart and cheat.
After having our first son together, we lived together for about 3 years. We found out that after the new year, we were gonna have a second son. He decided he didn't want anything to do with me. I ended up living with another family member, just to better our lives.
Now there's a child being dragged into the middle of this psychotic drama. In the beginning, these two had a seemingly happy family. They even had a kid together. They had been living together for 3 years, but the moment Ms. Fisher got pregnant again, things became worse than before.
She got pregnant with Xavier. She's cheated on me multiple times. I came home, I found my mattress flipped over. I came home, I found multiple people in my bedroom.
I want to be clear too, you all were in a relationship.
Yes, Your Honor.
At first, Mr. Meyer only doubted the paternity of the second child. But with time, when he saw evidence of Ms. Fisher sleeping around, he began to think that the woman he was in love with hadn't been telling him the truth. But then why did he never take a DNA test in 3 years?
If he thought for some reason that one of these children were not his after 3 years of having the first one, would you not take a DNA test from initial?
I asked you how many times about a DNA test?
When you found out Ms. Fisher was pregnant, did you believe instantly this wasn't your child?
I had serious doubts this kid was my child right when she told me.
One unfortunate day, Ms. Fisher found Mr. Meyer crying in their room. She says she felt concerned for him, but then he told her to leave immediately. Turns out the poor man was trying to cope up with the fact that she had been going behind his back. So, how did he react to her pregnancy?
My neighbor told me some guys crawled out the window. Who was that? Who crawled out the window?
I would like to know myself.
Oh, well, you were there, obviously. I mean...
Your neighbor told you someone was crawling?
My neighbor said, hey, is your house broken into? I'm like, I don't know, I can go check and think. Why would my house be broken? He said, I seen somebody crawling out of your window. I said, really? So I go run to my house. Nothing's gone or nothing like that.
Hold up, though, because things truly start going south when one day, when Ms. Fisher comes to pick up Mr. Meyer from work, he tells the court that her entire hair was covered in bodily fluids, and that can only happen if she was off doing the deed with someone else. Is that why she was so late?
This is what his doubt is based on. Were you with someone else?
She admitted cheating on me that night. She was so messed up and partying all night, I'm guessing she didn't understand or remember that.
This night is a
Probably
part
more
of
than
his
one guy.
imagination. I'm frustrated, I'm overworked, I'm tired.
Eventually, Mr. Meyer admits to the court that after he separated from Ms. Fisher, he realized how much he missed his first son. He practically raised that boy for 2 years, but he was 100% sure that the second kid didn't belong to him. Even just seeing him made him tear up.
Because I have never left that house, not only for one day, but not especially for a week. So I know for a fact.
Not true at all. You claim she was at her mom's or wherever. I took us taking care of Michael. What do you mean you never left for a week?
She visited us 3 times total, one being the birth of Michael and 2 other visits.
Then Mr. Meyer confesses that sometimes Ms. Fisher wouldn't be home for a week. Who knows what she was up to? No wonder Mr. Meyer ended up having so many doubts. What really devastates him is that even his first son might not be his. Can the results help him break free from Ms. Fisher?
You are the father.
You have anything you would like to say to your son?
I just feel terrible right now, and I will be taking care of him.
Mostly, women try to battle it out on paternity court with accusations of cheating and lying. But there's a special case with Stephanie. It turns out she's gone full psychotic, and she's here with one claim: that a ghost is the father of her child, Xavier.
My son needs his family. He calls her Nana, and she's been in his life. We need answers. He has nobody.
Okay, let's keep it real, please.
Heartbroken, confused.
But why? I just making me understand one thing. Why didn't I know about you?
I don't understand why you didn't know about me either.
Okay, that's not an answer.
Long ago, Stephanie and Georgie were living their happily ever after. And then they had Xavier. Initially, George's parents, Mr. Long and Mrs. Brown, readily accepted the newborn child into their family. But now, they're saying that Stephanie's making up lies about dating Georgie.
Friends. It was like a sexual friendship that we had for so many years. Like
for 5 years?
Yeah.
So how did you find out
And was he having a girlfriend? He had a girlfriend. I know his
Yeah,
girlfriend.
no matter who we were with, we still had sexual relations.
Right off the bat, things start getting pretty heavy between Mrs. Brown and Stephanie. On top of that, Mr. Long has a story to tell too. He proclaims that while Georgie was alive, he showed him a picture of Xavier, asking if there was any resemblance between the two. For them, Stephanie showed up out of nowhere.
There's other people in the neighborhood must be saying something because he came to me after 2 years. He brought this to my attention. It went over my head.
You told me that he looks like all your other grandkids.
My grandkids are biracial.
But that's what you said. He has Georgie's nose.
My grandkids are biracial. I don't want to look at this baby and see something that's not there.
It's very confusing to understand whether Stephanie's telling the truth or not. She doesn't even have her side of the story straight. According to her, she was in a relationship with Georgie for 5 years. But when Judge Lauren asks if Georgie ever met Xavier, she can't provide a clear answer.
You know, he didn't. He just wanted to know if the baby was his.
When did you tell Georgie you had a baby?
When the baby was 5 months old, Georgie came to me and called me and said, "Your son has my note." And I said, "Oh my God,
He came
you
to
are
you and
right."
said-
he said
that?
"Your son has my note."
Just out the blue?
Yeah, when the baby was 5-6 months old.
Amidst all the confusion, while Georgie was still alive, he ended up having a change of heart. He and Stephanie decided to get a home DNA test done, but before that could happen, poor Georgie passed away in a motorcycle accident, and the specimen expired. That explains why they're hoping Judge Lauren gives them the answers.
So there's one other man besides
How are you
Georgie.
telling me
Oh, so it's one other, you saying?
Yeah, it's him and the other guy.
Oh, one other man. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Did you ever tell the other guy?
He had passed away when I was 5 months pregnant.
Oh.
He had got murdered.
Looks like Bad Luck is friends with Stephanie because even though she's come to court to prove things, both potential men are dead. You can't raise a baby with a dead daddy, Stephanie. While Georgie's family has been compliant for the DNA test, the same can't be said for the other family.
I tell him Georgie's.
See, that's the problem.
What do you
that's
tell
the problem.
him?
That he watches his videos and I say, you know, that's daddy.
And he points to the videos and says daddy.
He calls him daddy.
Because either way, Georgie told me no matter what the results were when he was alive, that he was going to be in his life.
Really?
Yes.
The heartbreaking fact is that Mrs. Brown spent 2 years trying to get over her Georgie's death. So it's very unfair of Stephanie to bring this up now. She could have done this before Mr. and Mrs. Brown still would have tried to raise Xavier. Can the results give these women the answers they need?
The percentage of relatedness between Ms. Brown and Mr. Long and Xavier Shimolinski is 0%.
I'm sorry.
What?
She had on some booty cutter shorts.
What are booty color shorts?
There's booty cutters.
It's like, to me, I think she likes to destroy homes. Like, she likes
How?
to deal with attached men. Like,
How? You're saying she likes to deal with attached men.
Yeah.
Are you an attached man now?
yes, ma'am.
Miss Smith's teenage crush on Mr. Brooks resulted in a pregnancy and the birth of her son over 2 decades ago. In this entire time, Mr. Brooks has denied being the father, even though he took her to the motel when she was still a virgin and they had unprotected sex.
I lied about my age, and Mr. Brooks happened to take me out one evening, and I lied to my mother about where I was going to be and who I was going to be with. He wound up taking me out. We were supposed to go to the movies, but we wound up going to a cheesy motel that he could afford.
And you have sex with him?
Yes, and I was a virgin.
Judge Lauren asks Miss Smith how she knew she was pregnant, and she says it was revealed when the school nurse made her take the test. Mr. Brooks claims he didn't know about her pregnancy, while Miss Smith says they lived in the same neighborhood and everyone knew she was pregnant, including including Mr. Brooks.
I walked to the neighborhood store and he saw me and Kevin ran like he always do.
And you were about to tell him you were pregnant, or did you already tell him?
He knew I was pregnant. Everybody in the neighborhood knew. He wasn't around like saying. He would be in the neighborhood, go to the store, and I would see him off and on.
Miss Smith says Mr. Brooks even saw her in the corner store after Jimmy was born, asked her why she hadn't named Jimmy after him, and even gave her a little money that she used to buy some supplies for her son. Mr. Brooks completely denies this and says he only heard about Jimmy's existence when Jimmy was 12 years old.
Why he doesn't have my name?
That never happened.
He's lying, Your Honor. Your Honor, we met,
That
Kevin
never
was in the store and you gave me a few dollars. That's the time that I bought my son, Jimmy, an outfit and a pair of tennis shoes and some Pampers. You don't remember that?
Only in your mind.
All right, whatever.
your
You're a
mind.
liar. You're a liar.
Miss Smith says when Jimmy was 12, they learned Mr. Brooks was dead. She was trying to enlist in the military and needed consent from both parents to transfer Jimmy's guardianship in her absence, and the courts told her Mr. Brooks was dead. He, however, denies this and says she told him about Jimmy at that time.
Well, who told you I was deceased?
We went to court because I was
Who
getting in
told
the
you I was
military,
deceased?
and the courts in where we was in Virginia, they have to have both parents involved before they could give any guardianship to another family member. So when I gave them Kevin Brooks' name and the court system had to run it through the system, birthday and all, it came back that Kevin was deceased.
Miss Smith says she later discovered Mr. Brooks wasn't dead when a mutual friend told her about him. She looked him up on Facebook and they reconnected. Talk soon turned to Jimmy, and she said he should meet his son. Mr. Brooks claims she didn't use her own pictures to talk to him, and he was misled.
Just to make sure it was
Did you use your own profile?
Yes, I did.
She sent another picture.
Oh my God.
She sent another picture. Another picture of an
Was it
officer.
another picture, or was it just that you hadn't seen her in so long you didn't know who it was?
It was a whole nother picture of an
I look the
officer. It was an
same.
officer that had been
I am an
deceased.
officer.
If she'd have used her face, I would never.
Okay.
Jimmy begins telling his experience of the situation, which is that he grew up feeling like the streets were his father because he didn't have his own father to rely on. He says when he met up with Mr. Brooks a while back and they decided to get a DNA test done, Mr. Brooks hopped out of the car and ran off.
I mean, it's not like he said he wasn't, it's not like he said he was. He said, you know, he wanted to knock it out too, but it's the way his attitude was about the situation. When I walked to the car and I looked back, he was gone. I went down a couple blocks, looked for him, and then I wound up seeing him. So I hopped out the car. When I hopped out the car, I was like, yo, what you doing? So he kept going.
Judge Lauren sternly asks Mr. Brooks if he has ever tried solving this paternity issue by himself. She says Jimmy had to live in doubt for 24 years because of his father's actions. Jimmy interrupts to say that no matter what happens, he'll be fine. Judge Lauren exclaims that it's time for the surprising truth to finally come out.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Brooks, you are the father.
I told you. I was a virgin.
You are the father.
And the only thing I lied about was my age.
That's the only part I came here for to find out the results.
This is the case of Miss Bailey and Mr. Dark. Mr. Dark says Miss Bailey is a promiscuous woman that he was once in a relationship with, while Miss Bailey says Mr. Dark is well aware that he is the father of little Jameer and is just denying the paternity out of malice.
Miss Bailey, you say Mr. Dark is a deadbeat who knows full well he is your son Jameer's father. You claim there is no way anyone but Mr. Dark could have fathered your son. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Dark says he wants to tell the courtroom a little bit about their history. He says he was dating Miss Bailey 4 to 5 years ago when he had to leave her to go to another state for a few days. When he came back, Miss Bailey's best friend revealed to him that she'd been cheating on him in his absence.
Everything was okay. Everything was pretty good when I first met her. We had some good conversations about establishing us a family and probably having kids, things like that. We lived together at that time. I left to go out of town to do some work. I was working out of town, out of state, as a matter of fact. I went to Florida to do some work in Florida. While I was going to Florida to do some work, almost every day.
Mr. Dark says he tried to make it work for a year or so, but couldn't handle Miss Bailey's betrayal, and they broke up. They still meet occasionally and sometimes even have sex. He says they last had unprotected sex in March, and Jameer was born on November 13th.
We never stopped dealing with each other along the way. Even though we separated, we still occasionally seen each other every, like 2, 3, maybe every 2 months, 3 months or so.
What's dealt with each other mean?
We still seen each other occasionally.
Seen each other and had sex, or
Yes,
just
ma'am.
seen each other
Still
and
was
said
having
hello?
unprotected sex sometimes, yes ma'am.
He further states that he suspects she was already pregnant by the time they slept together, and he is just a crutch for her to support the child. He further reveals that he is also on Jameer's birth certificate because Miss Bailey forced him to sign it, while she denies forcing him to do such a thing.
I signed the birth certificate to answer your question is because you told me at the hospital that if I didn't sign it right then I wouldn't have another opportunity to sign it. That's what you told me right there at the hospital.
No, I didn't. You didn't have to sign it. I didn't force you to sign it. You signed it on your own.
If I didn't sign it, what was gonna happen?
Miss Bailey tells Judge Lauren she's been in a similar situation before, where the paternity of her child was questioned. That issue has been resolved now. Judge Lauren says there's a 3-week discrepancy between Jameer's birth and the date of conception. She asks Miss Bailey if she was intimate with someone else at the time, who says no.
Miss Bailey, I must ask you, who were you intimate with during that time?
No
in
one.
February?
No one. I haven't had sex in February.
Was the baby a full-term baby?
Yes, he was.
This is it's almost 3 weeks after. Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. I'm very sure.
Mr. Dark says he's been actively involved in Jameer's life from the start and has even taken him to see his family. Miss Bailey says she hopes Mr. Dark acknowledges Jameer after today, as she knows what it feels like to grow up without a parent. So, can the DNA results patch this broken family back together?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Dark, you are the father. You are the father.
Mr. Richardson and Miss Robbins have found themselves in this courtroom because Mr. Richardson doesn't think Miss Robbins' baby is his. He says he mistakenly signed the birth certificate even though he doubted the paternity of the child and now wants the issue resolved before he ends up paying child support for someone else's child.
Mr. Richardson, why'd you sign the birth certificate if you doubted paternity?
It was at the moment, but I don't know.
He was there during the whole entire time, during delivery and pregnancy. He was there, but he also signed the recognition of parentage.
Miss Robbins says he was there for the entirety of the pregnancy and doesn't know why he's doubting everything. She also asked him if he was sure he wanted to sign the birth certificate. He says he got caught up in the emotions of the birth and laid his doubts aside, but the baby looked too light-skinned to be his son.
I asked him twice, are you sure you want to do this?
Oh, why did you ask him twice if you know it's his child?
Because during my entire pregnancy, he had doubts, and I asked him before we do this recognition of parentage, are you sure you want to sign this?
Your Honor, I didn't want to seem like the bad guy at the time. I was in my emotions and...
Mr. Richardson says she was sneaky from the start because when he met her, she was still married. He pursued her and she cheated on her husband with him. Soon after, she got divorced and showed him her divorce decree on the internet. Miss Robbins says she doesn't understand why he has doubts since they've been exclusive for 3 years.
When we got into being more into a serious relationship and I knew that I wanted to be with him, I decided that I wanted it to be just me and him. And I did tell him and I showed him proof that I was divorced.
Your Honor.
And I had been with no one else except for him, so I don't understand the whole DNA part.
Miss Robbins says she hasn't been feeling good for a while and took a pregnancy test, which came back positive. She showed it to Mr. Richardson, who didn't believe her at first. She said she wanted to keep the baby. He says he only pretended to be happy about the baby because he was going to get pregnant sex.
We took the pregnancy test together in the bathroom, sat it on the counter, and we watched it.
Why would you pretend you were happy?
And still be with me. And still be with me the whole time.
Sneaky, but
I don't get it.
I mean, because
of what? I'm sorry.
Pregnant sex.
Okay, but you didn't get that, and you know why.
Mr. Richardson says he began having doubts when she wouldn't let him accompany her to doctor's appointments for the baby. She said it was because he was doubting the paternity of the baby. He He further says she suddenly came into a large amount of money right before Christmas, which he suspects another man to be giving her.
Tell me if there's any other reason you have doubt.
I went to one doctor's appointment with her, right? And then I went to go to the other ones. She told me, no, you don't have to come.
I don't need
said,
you to
why?
hold my hand.
I don't need you to hold my hand.
You're telling me
That's what made
he's
you...
not mine, this is not my baby, all this the whole time. So why would I let you be a part of that?
Mr. Richardson says he tried getting a DNA test before, and they even booked an appointment. However, when it came time to go to the appointment, Miss Robbins refused, and they instead spent the time watching TV. Judge Lauren asks why she would do that when Mr. Richardson already had doubts, and she replied that she was tired.
She made an appointment. We supposed to split 1:35. It was 2 something to go get a DNA test. She said, I set an appointment. I'm gonna come at 4:30 when you get off work. I got there
But
at 3
I made
o'clock.
the appointment.
Yes, you made the appointment. But you said it was 4:30. I got at your house at 3 o'clock. 3:30 come. We sitting around, okay.
Judge Lauren says Miss Robbins should have gone to the appointment just so the doubts would stop and her son's life wouldn't be on pause anymore. She says both Mr. Richardson and Miss Robbins wasted so much time playing games, but it's time for the truth. So, who's the DNA test going to favor?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Richardson, you are the father. You really didn't know?
Miss Parmer and Mr. Ross showed up in the court because Miss Parmer claims her 3-month-old son, Jace, was fathered by Mr. Ross. However, Mr. Ross denies the claim. Miss Parmer says she grew up without a father and knows what that feeling is like, which is why she doesn't want that for her son.
I raised my daughter by myself, and I never thought I would have to go through this myself, not once again. And it's just like, to deal with this, I feel like I shouldn't have to go through this. I didn't ask for this, but I took upon all of this because that's what a woman's supposed to do.
And you feel alone in this entire process of raising your child?
I do. I did it with my daughter.
Judge Lauren asks them how their relationship began. Mr. Ross says he saw her pumping gas out in the cold once and told her he'd do it for her. They exchanged numbers and they texted each other the next day and were soon sleeping together. He says she didn't want any commitment, and he soon broke it off.
I met Jessica in Birmingham, Alabama at a gas station. So once I got a number, we got the text. Next morning, she texted me, good morning. She asked me what I was doing, asked me if I want to come over. I went to her house, she gave it to me, and we were having sex for 2 weeks, but we was using protection the whole 2 weeks. And I asked her for a serious relationship. She told me she was still messing around with other guys.
Mr. Ross says the doubts truly began to creep in when she sent him a picture of a positive pregnancy test and followed it up with an apology saying it wasn't meant for Mr. Ross, rather for the other guy she'd been sleeping with at the time. He says it gave him reason to doubt her intentions regarding the paternity.
It was a mistake on sending it to him. So once he continued to deny, it's just like, I left it where it was and I, continue with the alleged father.
Of course I'm gonna deny because she told me that I wasn't a father. And 9 months later after she had a baby, she comes to me and tells me, well, I think you are the father. So of course I'm gonna have doubts because if she told me that I'm not the father and she was sleeping around with this guy and she lied.
Miss Parmer says she took a DNA test with the other alleged father and it turned out to be negative, making her sure that Mr. Ross was the father of little Jace. When she pursued Mr. Ross to get the paternity test, he refused her. In fact, he said he changed his number twice to get rid of her.
I asked him to do a DNA test for me, and he told me that he was not the father, and then it's just like got to the point where he wanted to, he started claiming my son, sending pictures, everything. He made the statement of he would help me buy a car seat.
I said I would help buy a car seat.
Not only
because I
that,
felt
he
bad.
was claiming my son at the time.
Mr. Ross said Miss Parmer threatened that she would be putting him on child support. She says she said that so he'd come get a DNA test. Miss Parmer says she just wants the DNA test to reveal the truth, so her son doesn't suffer the same way as her.
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Ross, you are the father.
Are you gonna step up and be his father? I was without my father for 23 years of my life.
Yeah, I have to take care of him.
That's the case, my son still be going over to your house. What do you mean?
Because I help you.
Whatever. Help me do what?
You need a child care to go to work.
Okay, so I work.
Why do you,
How do you know? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How do you know?
She was out.
How do you know?
I was
Right,
not
how
there,
do you
so
know when I was
therefore
living in your
I don't
house?
know.
Your son wanted me there.
You were
Your
out.
son wanted me there.
one at a time.
The most difficult cases to handle are the ones where a mother swoops in, proclaiming that a dead man fathered her child. Miss Willingham has come to court for pretty much the same reasons today. She wants to prove that late Nathaniel Allen fathered her baby Nicorian.
What has this past year and a half been like since Nathaniel's family denies your son?
It's been hard. It's just basically me. I mean, I'm a strong, independent woman of my children. I don't ask for help. So as far as depending on the system, I don't know where they're getting that from. I barely call them and ask them for anything.
Meanwhile, Nathaniel's sister, Miss Griffin, is 100% sure that the only reason Miss Willingham keeps chasing them is because she's in it for the money. She keeps upsetting their family, knowing very well that they're grieving the loss of their brother.
About 6 weeks after my son had passed, he come to me and says, you have to go and help me. Y'all need to help me. And I said, what I need to do? So she took me to the Social Security office, and they told her she had to get letters. So I wrote a letter and a couple of others. And no, I didn't believe this. It's my grandson.
You say you just don't believe?
No.
That letter really changes things for Miss Willingham. According to her, she really needed that letter so she could go to Social Security and access services. But when she asked Nathaniel's family to write the letter, instead of helping her out, they caused more trouble.
Before he passed, he wanted me to give him the information so he could put them on his 401k plan.
Well, me and Nathaniel had a conversation too, and he told me that he didn't think that Corian was his son. He said that it was not his son.
Because Nathaniel has caught you and this other person.
Lord, there's all sorts of crazy going on in court. The Griffins have a completely different story to tell. According to them, their boy Nathaniel was in a relationship with someone else when Nicorian was born, so it's not even possible the child is his.
Your son hurted me.
No.
What do you mean? You know your
my
son wasn't
by
like,
going
whatever.
with other guys.
Other guys?
Yes.
No, your son was a whore.
Because you're
okay,
not.
whatever.
All right, let's be respectful.
Yeah.
Let's be respectful.
You can't call one.
You should be up in this.
Hold on.
Honey.
He called me every day.
Lady.
All of the accusations from the Griffins really tear down Miss Willingham. The truth, according to her, is that Nathaniel left her for another woman, and when she took a pregnancy test, she called him to tell him that the baby could be his.
My son asked for a DNA.
No, that's not the case. We couldn't afford a DNA at that time.
Because he came and asked me too.
Whatever.
And I told him, I said, whenever you like, I would go.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to help me because y'all not trying to really be in these kids' life, period. That's not the case.
And
I
on
really
the day
don't care
that
if y'all
she
do.
had the baby, he didn't even go to the hospital because he said it was none of his.
He's a liar.
These two women won't stop fighting with each other. Judge Lauren has to ask the court to order at least several times to make them stop. Miss Willingham opens up about how selfish Nathaniel really was, and she had to go through the entire pregnancy all alone, without any support from him.
Okay, if that's the case, my son still be going over to your house. What do you mean?
Because I help you.
Whatever. Help me do what?
You
What
need
the hell
a day,
me
you
do?
need a child care to go to work.
Okay, so I work.
Okay, I watched you while you go to work. I didn't want you to lose your
Ladies, I need you to talk one at a time, but I do want to understand this because this is interesting testimony.
With the cousin's testimony in court, it seems that the Griffins really don't have much ground to stand on. Meanwhile, Miss Willingham's been enduring all of this mental torture for so long. She deserves some peace. The clock's ticking, and the results reveal the truth.
Latricia Griffin and Nicorian Allen are related.
Yeah, you know.
Thank you.
Are you ready to witness an exploding showdown in paternity court? This time, it's two grandmothers feuding over a toddler's paternity. Miss Johnson and her mother are prepared to fight Jalen Taylor and his mother and fire up the court.
Miss Johnson, you and your mother say even though the father of your 2-year-old son, Jaden Taylor, is a deadbeat dad, he has never denied him up until a couple of weeks ago. And today you claim to have medical evidence that proves Mr. Taylor is the father of your son. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Miss Johnson and Mr. Taylor had been co-parenting the 2-year-old boy. Then, 5 days ago, out of nowhere, Miss Johnson receives a strange text from Mr. Taylor. Suddenly, he refuses to look after the baby and wants a DNA test. Turns out an unknown woman told some big secret to Mr. Taylor.
Why did you send this out the blue?
It was actually a week ago. Me and my son was in the house playing around. I was told someone was outside for me. I went outside. A girl told me she had something to tell me about my baby mother. She said Ms. Johnson told another girl that Jaden wasn't mine.
Once that woman revealed that baby Jaden's true father could be someone else, Mr. Taylor opens up to the court about how Ms. Johnson has, on numerous occasions, blackmailed him, that the baby's not really his. What's going on here?
That's not your baby. That's not your baby. You right. That's not your baby. Somebody else the daddy. Somebody else is the daddy. Take him up off of your. That's what you could do. Take him all the way completely off of your. Period. Take him off. No, and I'm finna come get my own baby. How about that? 'Cause that's mine. That's my baby.
Miss Johnson, is that you?
Yes.
What a shocker! Here, Miss Johnson and her mother are protesting that Jaden is indeed Jalen's son. But then the video recording as evidence just says otherwise. What do these two women want? On top of that, Miss Johnson's mother justifies her daughter's behavior, saying she did it in anger.
He does nothing. He just, you know.
That's a lie.
What you
I
do?
do everything for
What proof? Where's the proof? You ain't seen him in 5 months, so what you do?
I have a lot of proof. I sent.
Okay,
Where is it? Can you see it? Can you
got any
see that?
receipts?
No.
Oh,
You ain't got that?
So wait a minute.
I thought.
He don't have to have receipts. She know we do for
No,
him.
for free. Now you don't do nothing.
It don't.
What do
if
you
it's
do,
free,
Yolanda?
It
I
doesn't
buy
even
him
be at
stuff.
home.
After that really heated duel between grandmothers, everyone's on the edge of their seats. Miss Johnson claims that Mr. Taylor's a deadbeat dad, but his mother says that it's Miss Johnson who's failed as a mother. But Miss Johnson reveals a new bomb. Mr. Taylor refused to see Jaden for 5 months.
Actually, the court sent in a paper saying I had to go take a DNA test. I went down there to take a DNA test. After I left, I messaged Ms. Johnson and told her that she was supposed to come with me to take the DNA test for my son. After that, she said, I told her she had to go down there and schedule one for him. She never
He only
went
went because child support started sending him letters in the mail.
Yep.
That's why he went, to be truthful.
Another shocking revelation comes when Miss Johnson reveals the true reason she never showed up for the scheduled DNA test. According to her, Mr. Taylor not only did it to get out of child support, but in his heart, he knew baby Jaden was his son. But for Mr. Taylor, it meant something different.
I always been around him. Like he was always with me. He, like she said, he's all over my Facebook, videos, pictures, like little conversations we have. I post them on Facebook and stuff like that.
So how is it that some one person out of the blue can walk up to you and just say, you know what?
Exactly.
That baby you've been with for 2 years, that's not your child.
Judge Lauren scolds Miss Johnson by reminding her men may forget a lot of things, but they never forget if you tell them that they're not the father. Those are some loaded words. Jaden has a lot in common with his dad, but the answer to these grandmother's paternity doubts lie in that envelope.
Mr. Taylor, you are the father.
Like I told you.
No. If you're not gonna, don't start that nonsense. Don't start that nonsense.
Can I go to?
When I gave you a chance to say something, you ain't had nothing to say.
The case of Mr. Jackson against his own daughter, Miss Jackson, is a strange one, but it's more than enough to add fuel to the fire of their paternity doubts. Mr. Jackson claims he's been forced into being Miss Jackson's father for the past 41 years, but today, he's had enough.
Ms. Jackson, you say Mr. Jackson is the only father you've ever known, and over the last 41 years, he has treated you like a second-class citizen. You say you have no doubt Mr. Jackson is your father, and you intend to prove it today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, what exactly are Mr. Jackson's woes? Being a father to Miss Jackson has taken a huge toll on his life. It became a burden in every way imaginable. He's not doing well mentally, and he had to spend a huge sum of money raising her. But most of all, she's the reason he's got a pacemaker in his heart.
How long have you been paying support, sir?
I've been paying support since I was maybe 30, Your Honor. I started working for a private contractor. For 18 years, Your Honor, I did not know that I owed child support. And I get a job with a paycheck. It's when I find out I owe child support.
But he's not exactly an innocent bystander here. Miss Jackson reveals that since she turned 10, Mr. Jackson has been telling her harsh things, like how her mother is a promiscuous woman who slept around with multiple men. Who says those things to a little girl?
I was always feeling like I was just someone there who he had a relationship with my mom.
What was the nature of the relationship with Miss Jackson's mother?
At the time I was married, and I knew it was wrong, but I did it.
So what happened when she told you she was pregnant?
I told her it was not my child, Your Honor.
Then, Mr. Jackson puts his foot down and claims that he never even signed Miss Jackson's birth certificate. His real name is Charlie Jackson, but the birth certificate says Charles Jackson. And the only person who called him Charles was Miss Jackson's mother. What can Miss Jackson say to that one?
Why he never treated me like a daughter since he has so much love in his heart? Why was I always treated like little trash off the street?
No, I've reached out to her at times, but she goes into a shell where she don't talk to nobody, she don't call nobody.
Miss Jackson breaks down that she can't be with good men because of Mr. Jackson. He gave her so many issues that now she can't ever be in a functional relationship. Mr. Jackson says that he never even knew she was going through so much. Moreover, Mr. Jackson thinks because she can't stutter, she can't be his daughter.
And during his testimony, he has talked about all of his children suffer from stuttering. Is stuttering an inherited trait?
Frequently it is, and there's a strong genetic component with stuttering. About 60% of people who stutter have family members that stutter as well.
Eventually, Judge Lauren calls in Mr. Jackson's witness, and guess who it is? It's his stepson, Mr. Johnson. The judge asks him a lot of questions to cross-check whatever Mr. Jackson said in court up until now. Then she starts asking him about Miss Jackson.
When you saw Miss Jackson, who did you think she was?
More like a friend.
So you don't believe your father, Mr. Jackson, would have denied Miss Jackson if he truly felt she was his biological daughter?
No, he wouldn't have.
Because you are not, in fact, his biological child.
No, I'm not.
But he raised you as his own.
Yes.
It's been a little bit too much for both Mr. Jackson and Miss Jackson. Witnesses and experts have been brought in, yet the only way to provide either of them any consolation is to finally open up the brown package. Will the results help save their failing relationship? Only one way to find out.
Mr. Jackson Jr., you are her father.
I'm so sorry.
All the best fights happen when there's a cheating scandal. But there's something even worse than that. It's when you think your brother might be the actual father of your child. Mr. Vogle's come into court to prove that Miss Vogle has been lying to him about their son, William.
Mr. Vogle, who do you believe his father is?
My brother, David.
Oh.
She had sex with my brother in the car, in my car in a parking lot in Janesville, Wisconsin.
Okay, wait a minute. Just take me back.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but there was no sex in the car. It was under a bridge. My son is a bridge, baby.
Well, that definitely has the entire court rolling in laughter. Right after their divorce, Mr. Vogle went down to Kentucky to see Miss Vogle. That's when she came out to him about having slept with his brother under a bridge. Once he lined up the dates, it was clear William wasn't his kid.
You married his brother?
Yeah, 3 years after I divorced him.
How do you get to a point where you're going to sleep with your husband's brother?
Well, the bridge thing, he treated me better. He was good to me. And he just was that smooth that he just talked me right out of my britches. Literally.
But the truth now lies in how William tells the entire story. He tells Judge Lauren that when he was 5, he used to think that his uncle David was his father. After all, that's who Miss Vogle was married to at the time. Then one day, she tells William that actually, his real dad could be Mr. Vogle, aka Daniel.
I have a young man standing in my courtroom, quite frankly, that says he hasn't had a secure thought in years.
No, he hasn't.
Because he doesn't have a firm foundation.
No,
because he doesn't know who his father is. It's like changing by the decade.
Yeah.
One decade he has one father.
Yeah.
The next decade that father is his uncle, and then the uncle is the father.
It starts getting really intense once William's asked to share his experience of having to go back and forth between two men. According to William, Mr. Vogle's actually a wonderful man, and not at all like how his mother's telling the story. Who's the truly honest person in this case then? Could William be biased?
He got to see me once in a while. It wasn't very often. Majority of the time living with David, I had actually been moved around from state to state. We really didn't stay in one place for a very long period of time. So my understanding of it was David was my father because he was the one raising me, but Daniel was my biological father.
Eventually, everything comes out in the open when Mr. Vogle starts sharing the dates. He tells the entire court how Miss Vogle admitted to sleeping with David on the 19th of February, 1984, the same day Mr. Vogle was trying to celebrate his birthday. That's one way of hurting your then husband.
I have beat myself up for many years trying to figure out the difference between this, the timeline, and everything else.
Okay, let's walk through this.
I've walked through the dates. I've done everything for
Walk
years.
through the dates with me. Walk through the dates with me.
She told me February 19th of 84. That was the story back then.
February 19th of 84 was what?
Was when her and my brother had sexual relations.
The main problem here is that because of all this confusion, it's Mr. Vogle who's been paying William's child support since 1990, even when he believes that he's not the boy's father. And now, Mr. Vogle has 3 of his own children to take care of, so all of these finances have really taken a toll on him.
Has any of this testimony affected your belief? Because you've told him back and forth. Is it just because you've just always been confused?
Yes, Your Honor, it is, because I just don't know.
Well, that's why we're here.
I thank you for that. That's okay. That's all forgiven, Donna. It's forgiven. Has been, you know that.
Now that's the kind of stuff I like to see under the bridge, Jerome.
So, before things could get any worse, Judge Lauren mediates a kind of truce between these 3. But it still doesn't take away the fact that poor William had to grow up feeling so uncertain about the identity of his own father. Who's the uncle here, and who's the father?
Mr. Daniel Vogle, you are his father.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Finally, back.
She a liar.
She was not even in the picture, Your Honor, so she has nothing to do with this. We was
what
together
picture that
here.
was?
2011, I was pregnant when baby was already here when they met, Your Honor.
All right. You are not.
I knew it!
Thank you! I knew it! I told you!
In desperate need of child support, Miss Chappelle stepped up in the court suing Mr. Todd. She claimed that the defendant was the father of her baby girl, and his girlfriend was manipulating him for denial. Meanwhile, the man alleged that the woman was just pinning her child on him to get back at him.
Mr. Todd, you state there's no chance that the child in question is your daughter. You say Miss Chappelle will stop at nothing to get you back, even if it means pinning a child on you that isn't yours.
True, Your Honor.
Initially, the plaintiff claimed that the alleged father's negligence made her lose her job. She claimed that the man had never taken care of the baby, so she had to pay for that. But the man denied it, and the awful war of words blurted out like this.
You two were in a sexual relationship.
Yes.
It wasn't no relationship.
It wasn't a relationship.
No.
You were just having sex.
Just having sex.
If you were having sex and she got pregnant, were you using protection every time?
No. At the time when we met, I was pregnant.
But
we never used
when we met, she was pregnant.
Wow, that was just insane! Mr. Todd further claimed that baby mama was sleeping with another man as she conceived the baby, which inflamed his doubts. But it turned out that the man was still beating the girl, because besides his main girl, he had several side chicks.
She was messing around with other guys, and by me being young and just doing crazy stuff, I go and mess with her at the same time too. So she was messing with men all at one time. But this one never my girl. I was in a relationship with someone, and she was messing around too. She was having sex with other. I had a girl.
Miss Chappelle denied all the claims. She alleged that she was not messing around with any other dude besides the man standing at the podium. And this time, the man's girlfriend could not hold herself back. So she jumped in, and they started squabbling like this.
Do you admit that you were having sex with other people in addition to Mr. Todd during the window of conception?
No, Your Honor.
She a liar.
She was not even in the picture, Your Honor, so she has nothing to do with this. We was
What
together
picture that
here.
was?
2011, I was pregnant when baby was already here when they met, Your Honor.
All right.
However, things took a worse turn when Miss Collins came into the picture. Further, it slipped that Miss Chappelle stole the phone and then took revenge for cheating by breaking their car windows. And to support her claims, the co-defendant brought evidence.
I had proof that she bust out my windows on my car. She ran. I have
She came to
a
where
receipt.
she was.
I have proof, and I have a police report that she bust my windows out on
Do
my
you
car.
have that evidence here today?
I do, ma'am.
This is an incident report which says there was damage to private property, vehicle.
And I do have the receipt too, Your Honor.
Further, it was revealed that baby mama was in miserable condition, so the defendants decided to take her to their house. But the bummer was the plaintiff turned her eyes after that and made other people take care of her baby while she was out having sexual intercourse with different men.
Was taking the baby when she's out having sex with different guys, coming in different times of night.
Okay, and so you feel like you moved her in and then she was avoiding getting the DNA test.
She doesn't look like Mr. Todd. And my cousin came and told me, she was saying it could be someone else's baby.
Oh my, how could people be so annoying? Like, if you've embraced the baby, then what would be the point of denial? Mommy disclosed that when the baby was born, he came with his whole family and complimented the baby. But the man cunningly changed his statement and asserted that even the doctor said to him that the baby was not his.
I told him that I was pregnant, and he was like, oh, this your third child, whatever. Well, he was like, our child would be the prettiest child. We're gonna have our baby, and we came to agreement that he would be there for her. And when I had her at the hospital, him, his brothers, all of them came
to the hospital.
Did you go to the hospital, Mr. Todd?
Yes, I went to the hospital, yeah.
And
now it was time to listen to Big Mama. She testified that the man was swinging in between different women without protection. This triggered Judge Lake about the mess they had created, so she articulated the facts like this.
When these two started messing around, he was on his first baby mama. That's who he was messing with. At the time when he was messing with my daughter.
it's like y'all playing tic-tac-toe or something.
Yeah,
I mean, you just here, there, everywhere.
But this is his baby, he know it.
This sexual activity with no protection.
A goofy blame game was going on in the court, and no one was ready to drop their stupid allegations. But as you know, it's Judge Lake's court, and no one could bamboozle her. So she thrashed the man like this.
She don't want to mess with her other baby dad and all the rest of them. She want to come to me and mess with me.
Well, you want to mess with her too.
But all the other men mess with her.
Thank you. He messed with her.
Look.
The alleged father and baby mama had intoxicated the situation instead of resolving the friction. But it was evident that both needed DNA results badly for their baby and their relationship. So, let's see those results.
Mr. Todd, you are not the father. Oh. And you're smiling, Miss Chappelle?
Yes, because at the end of the day,
this
is his child. What that did, they say, I ain't having sex with no one else you want. I know this on the man I was messing with at the time.
Yep, I know it.
Pernicious rumors warned Mr. Green about not being the father of his wife's baby. He dragged his spouse into the court, claiming she was amphiphilic and had messed with other people, which knocked him out of this paternity run. Meanwhile, the defendant was determined to prove him wrong.
Mr. Green, you claim that the defendant repeatedly cheated on you during your marriage with both men and women. You state you have every reason to doubt that you are one-year-old Keegan's biological father because of Mrs. Green's sexual track record.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, you've petitioned the court for a paternity test.
Yes, ma'am.
The alleged father's doubts regarding the baby's paternity flared up when he started to behave differently. He claimed that he never knew where his wife was or what she was up to. She never bothered to inform him, but the mommy claimed that the plaintiff abandoned her and the child. That's why she stepped back.
She told me she going to the store for like an hour. She'd be gone for like 2 or 3 hours and get back. I asked her where she been. Like she just been to her girlfriend's house. To her girlfriend's house can mean really her boyfriend's house or both. Like who knows, you know what I mean?
What if the store was just crowded?
I don't think Burger King at 10 o'clock at night is crowded until like 1 in the morning. So this is what made me like not want to be with her.
It slipped that the potential father moved to another city with another woman. But to defend himself, he claimed that when they broke up, the baby mama gave birth to another man's child, which tickled Judge Lake like this.
Okay, and then there was another time where, like, I flew back from Atlanta, like, we said we was gonna get it together, you know what I'm saying? I flew back from Atlanta, came in the house, we're chilling.
With another woman in Atlanta. Tell the whole story.
We just broke it up, you already had another child by somebody else,
okay.
So what you mean?
Yes, ma'am, I did, and he would have also had another child during that point. If
Allegedly.
Still another child.
Allegedly, that wasn't mine.
There's still another child
what
that
kind of marriage is this?
Further, the man revealed that he found the wrappers of the condom, which made him certain that his girlfriend had brought another man into the picture. But the woman stated that she had never cheated on him. and the other guy came when Mr. Green left for his baby mama.
Like one time I came home or whatever from being like out or whatever, out of town or whatever, I came and was kind of rapping on the
How
floor.
long were you out of town for? Where were you at when you were out of town?
I was in Atlanta.
Right, in Atlanta, right.
Yeah, I was in Atlanta.
With who?
Were you in Atlanta with your son's mother, or were you in Atlanta visiting your son? There's a difference.
However, the baby mama claimed that she had not dragged anyone into her marriage, and at the time she conceived the baby, she was intimate with the potential father only. But the man denied her testimony, over which she reacted this way.
I had not been with anyone during the time that this child was conceived besides
Oh, really?
him.
Somebody wasn't calling your phone?
So,
old boy wasn't keep calling your phone?
do you get pregnant through the phone?
You are certain
Yes,
that
ma'am.
during that time, even though you'd had sex with other men and women, during this time when this child was conceived, you were only sleeping with your husband?
Yes, ma'am.
The man claimed that people around town were sending him red flags due to his wife swindling. So his cousins put on their detective hats and found out that his wife had spent a significant amount of time in the men's barber shop.
My cousin them telling me that she be on the barbershops all the time, messing with this one, messing with that one. Like,
Now,
please.
all of this was happening during the time the baby was conceived?
Yeah, this is all around the same time, yes.
Together.
Or whatever, together. Yeah, we was partying,
Right.
having a good time together. But at the end of the day, I was about you, and that was that. You was about everything else. I didn't want none of that.
The plaintiff alleged that his wifey had made him fall from grace, as she brought another woman for her husband to fulfill his desires. Oh gosh, this was hard to comprehend. What woman on earth asks her husband to bang another woman? That's gross.
That was my first sexual experience with two females and all that. She asked for all of that.
He was there,
that was her
though.
people's.
He
that
was
was her
there.
homegirl. Who does that?
He was
You know,
there.
what woman brings another woman into the situation, into the equation?
So
That's that
now
she wanted it.
you two,
And I
as a
didn't even
married
I didn't even like the female. Like, I
during
didn't even
the
like the
time-
Oh, he didn't
side
like that female,
Yeah.
but he liked
You
it.
don't have to
Hold
advocate.
on, let's
like,
get some order. Hold on 1 second.
Nonetheless, the man claimed that his wife brought another into their marriage, which made him doubt the baby's paternity. But sir, no woman can father a child. Judge Lake reminded him of that too. And it turned out that the baby mama told herself that she was messing with another dude.
During this time, you've heard rumors that she's sleeping around with other
It was
people.
a female. She actually brought a female into the situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, she brought
Well, she's not gonna get pregnant by a woman. I hate to break that to you. We need to understand what men have you heard.
No.
Because a female cannot impregnate anybody, and this is paternity court, so we need somebody to be a father.
However, Miss Green testified that her spouse was just making things up. Yet she confessed about having a relationship with another. She claimed that the potential father had double standards, so he kept another going on. And even his claims sounded fishy. So Judge Lake hopped into it like this.
He has double standards. Everything's cool as
I
long
don't
as
have
it's
no
going
double
his
standards.
way.
Why are you lying?
But
You told me that. You told me that you was pregnant. You told me that you might be pregnant. Like, before
Okay.
you told me you might be pregnant by somebody else. You told me that.
Really?
Before I even flew back there. Yes, you did.
Okay.
You told me that.
You just now saying that she told you that she may be pregnant before you ever flew back from Atlanta?
Yes, Your Honor.
Finally, to understand this paternity puzzle, Judge Lauren Lake summoned the witness. He claimed that baby mama turned up and brought numerous men into her bed. This triggered the judge, so she asked for an explanation like this.
They both turned up, but she extra turned up.
I believe I want you to explain to me in respectful language, if possible, what turned up means. Enlighten me.
No holds barred. Everything is a go.
Sexually.
Yes.
Understood. Multiple partners.
Vegas in the bedroom.
Next, Mr. Green asserted that the baby's appearance had also pinched him, as the baby did not possess any of his features. He claimed that the woman had dated the typical black man and that he looked more like them. Huh, man, didn't someone tell you that babies come in all shapes and colors?
The child looks like you?
No, their mouth is open the same with the same dun-dun look on their face. Like, come on now. But my baby don't look like
He
you.
looks like a typical black male. Like, come on.
Oh, you do too. Imagine that.
Yes, and
So let's
you've been
get
sleeping
paperwork,
and you've been sleeping
so we
with
don't even have to
typical
worry
black
about
men.
it.
You don't see any resemblance here?
No.
With all the testimony done, it was evident that nonstop bickering and allegations would not help them find the clue they were looking for. And the truth was sealed in the DNA envelope. So to end their paternity dispute, Judge Lake moved towards the results.
Mr. Green, you are the father.
Now turn up to that.
You shouldn't be surprised.
I'm not surprised, are you?
You shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't be surprised that I said
Okay,
something.
I don't even
come on.
care. I don't even care. It's okay. I just need my paperwork.
Every girl grows up looking up to her father, and that was just the case for Miss Others. Growing up, she had a great relationship with her dad, But suddenly, things took a pretty bad turn. It all happened when Miss Others' father all of a sudden started denying paternity. Poor Miss Others, just a teenage girl, had to struggle to accept this new reality.
When my daughter was about 2 years old, she and I became intimate again, and she wound up pregnant. So of course I'm being excited, I'm there for her. There's a doorbell, and somebody's at the doorbell. This other gentleman comes in saying, "Where's my baby?" Saying that he was the father, and she's also telling me that I'm the father as well.
Well, Mr. Bell has a lot to say. According to him, in the beginning, he believed that this was his daughter until he found out that the woman he had been involved with hadn't been very honest with him. So he met Miss Others at a McDonald's and gave her an ultimatum. He wanted a DNA test.
He hasn't been there for me.
I've been there for her, and I don't know what she's talking about. I haven't been there for her.
No, you have not.
You admit this McDonald's day happened?
Probably.
Probably.
Can't recall that.
Mr. Bell, if you forget a fact like that, your credibility is shot.
No. That wasn't a topic of conversation when I met her at McDonald's.
Now, Judge Lauren asks Mary, the mother, to step into the court, and she insists that she had always been honest with Mr. Bell. She had already told him that her first child might be another man's, but Mr. Bell claims she kept lying. So, who's being the honest one here? Then, Mr. Bell's mother comes into the picture.
Did you have any doubts at that time that...
No doubts at all, Your Honor, no doubt. Only when the baby was born, the little boy.
So you don't doubt her?
I don't doubt
you
Your Honor.
believe that she's your son's child?
I believe there's a possibility.
A possibility?
Yes.
But you also
Because he
believe
was
that
there.
her mother could be lying again?
Yes.
I'm not lying, Your Honor.
Everybody starts arguing and forgets that this is actually about Miss Others, the teenage girl who doesn't know if her father is her father. The judge asks her to share how it felt being at the center of so much chaos, and she says it was incredibly hard.
She came to my job with my grandbaby and asked me for more money. I gave her the money. Her mother calls me and said, "Why did you give her money?"
If you
That's
weren't
not
sure,
true.
You are lying.
You already lied. That is not true.
No,
So wait.
all you're doing is being a mama's boy.
It all turns into a big mess, and Mr. Bell even talks about smacking the girl. This man has to be out of his mind. Mr. Bell accuses his daughter of being a liar and a troublemaker. He keeps yelling in court, and after all this trouble, there's really only one way to resolve it.
Mr. Bell, you are not.
I knew it!
Thank you!
I knew it!
I knew it! I told you! He's a liar! No, the liar!
Who the daddy is!
Thank you, Judge. Thank you so much. Told you, Tiana. Told you.